It's a beautiful day here in Pittsburgh.
It's a little bit of an overcast kind of day.
Well, I've seen worse.
Yeah.
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 So why didn't the other farm animals want to play basketball with the pigs?
The pigs were too greedy?
Kind of. Turns out that they're quite the ball hogs.
Oh, got 'em. Dad joke of the year right there.
Yeah, I'm just saying. So welcome back to another episode of the Mission Control Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Stearns with Ascend Digital Agency. Special shout out to the team at Roofer for help bringing this together. They're great.
Phenomenal.
You use Roofer, right?
I do, yes.
You love them, hate them?
Love them.
Okay.
Love them.
Yeah, so if you need clean and pristine proposals, instant roof measurements, instant quoting software, I mean, they've got it all. And I've heard they might be dropping a CRM. So other than that, if you just want to talk to great people, hit the link in the comments, description, whatever platform it's on. There will be a damn link. Just click it and thank me later. It's fine. Brock McClelland, how are you, my friend?
I'm well, and yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. We're on site today at your beautiful office. You didn't have this office when we started working together.
We did not, no. We definitely did not. So we were working out of a home office and what I like to call my mobile office, a.k.a. my truck.
What kind of truck did you have at the time?
2015 GMC 1500.
Okay, the 1500.
Yeah.
You've come a long way. How many trucks do you have now?
Nine
trucks.
Yeah.
And that was, what, 3 years ago?
June of 2020.
Almost 3 years to the day. That's crazy. If you had to put a finger on one of the things that have helped you get to the point where you are today from where you started, what would that be?
Customer satisfaction, building our reputation, branding ourselves to the best of our ability.
Okay. I like that. A lot of, in my experience of almost a decade in dealing with contractors, oftentimes there tends to be one aspect or another or a bunch that are overlooked, and I find branding to kind of be at the top of the heap. So what did you do early on to brand your company to make sure that while you're delivering this customer experience that's so important to you, that other people in the community, other homeowners, other folks in general get that, they feel that through your branding? So
ultimately, we linked with you, Mike Stearns, Ascend Digital Agency, right? Plug. And we took a multi-phase marketing approach.
Okay.
So we did a little bit of everything. The idea behind it was to build the company as fast as possible to get it in front of as many people that we could. So between billboards, digital marketing, SEM, SEO, website, Google Guaranteed, we ran radio commercials. We're now on TV. We have touched every avenue possible.
Yeah, that's smart. Now, what I hear from feedback from contractors as far as their trepidation to commit to brand, especially things like traditional media. So you mentioned radio or TV or billboards, is that like it doesn't work. So as a young company, you've got X amount of dollars for your marketing and advertising. Did you see an immediate return from those things on the traditional media side?
No, we did not. So it's more of a long haul. That's where there's a fine line between marketing and branding in itself. And to get where we were trying to head, I knew that it was going to be a long-term investment in the branding in itself. So you got fast money and you got slow money. You need to have a healthy balance of the fast money coming in attached to the long money in itself.
Yeah, that's smart. But let me play devil's advocate here. I think people take the same approach like when they're going to the gym, right? They start going to the gym and it's like, we know that's a long-term play. But the amount of people that start there with that understanding, that stay committed even though they're not seeing the results, it's a low percentage, right? That can actually bear through the month, 2 months until they actually, the shirt's a little baggier, the pants aren't fitting, they got to get a new belt, because they're achieving the goals, right? There's a lot of turnover between the start and for people getting to that point. And I think it's the same with contractors in my experience is, they start an initiative to start driving their brand and building their brand equity in their community and in their service areas. But while they start at the point of, I know it's going to be a long-term play, they end up getting away from the branding because they're not seeing the leads that come from it. They're not seeing revenue that's associated in the first 60 days. So what gave you confidence, and as a young business owner at the time, to get to the point to where you're like, you know what, I don't give a fuck. I'm committing to the branding because I know that it's going to help my company in the long term.
So those other contractors are looking for a faster ROI, ultimately, and they're looking for instant gratification. to where I had to put my desire for instant gratification to the side, and I was more invested in creating generational wealth in itself for myself, my employees, and then ultimately my family. So having that mindset and knowing that with having consistency, because consistency equals greatness.
I like it. Be consistent. Yeah, because I mean, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. But like, were there exercises as far as being intentional that you did consistently to like, because it's easy for us to be obsessed with immediate gratification, delayed gratification. It's easy to talk about. It's a lot harder to acquiesce to the fact that like, okay, I'm gonna be committing to something for 8 months, 12 months, 15 months, whether it's the gym, whether it's SEO, whether it's branding, right? Like it's a utopian for concept for a lot of people that doesn't get actualized. So were there things intentionally that you did to remain focused on like, hey, we're committed to this. I don't give a shit what happens in the next 3 months, 5 months. Like, we're going to do this.
So we just ultimately stayed the course, right?
Okay.
You and yourself, you guided me through that process. You were able to differentiate for me the difference between quick money and long money in itself, right? So I just stayed the course in itself. Every dollar that came in, where a lot of guys and companies, what I'm realizing is they get that fast money right out of the gate with contractors, right? Roofing companies and so forth, to where the money that was coming into the company went back into the company in itself. So I was frugal, as they would say, right? Some may call me McClelland Steen in itself. And I was okay with that. Sure. I lived within my means. If you hear guys talk about it all the time, if you're making $100 a month in itself, right? Cut that in half. Then take that $50 and then cut that in half. And then cut that into a third. And that's where you need to live within your budget. So even though there was a plan, there wasn't a plan, but we had an ultimate idea behind the strategy in itself to stay built in and invested into that. And the vision in itself that was there for the company. To get to where I was going, we had to stay in the long-term effect.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What were some of the biggest challenges, or if there's one that comes to mind, or several, that you faced kind of from where you were at when we started working together, you're at like a couple 100,000 in revenue to where you're at today with, 9 trucks, a large team, 5-star rating at, I think 300 some plus 5-star ratings across the board.
Yeah.
It's not all rainbows and butterflies, right? So if you hear this conversation and you look at the Google review, Google business profile, you're like, God, he's fucking killing it. He's an overnight success. It was super easy. But I'm sure there were challenges along the way. What were some of those challenges?
So it was probably one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do, especially when we started the company, right? It was June of 2020. It was during a pandemic, right? The country was in turmoil. Nobody knew what was going to happen with what. There's a killer disease in itself that's floating around, killing everybody. And accommodating the customers in itself, right? Customer satisfaction. There's a lot of Kens and Karens in today's world, right? Social media in itself it's great for what it serves, the purpose that it serves ultimately, but it can also be very detrimental to your company very quickly. If you don't take pride in what you're doing, you're going to get busted up out there. I see companies that pop up and they're here today and they're gone tomorrow, right? The fly-by-night kind of guys. 2 chucks in a truck, a mic and a bike. They're
I feel personally attacked.
You just happen to be Mike.
Yeah.
We just kept our eye on the goal in itself. Employees, right? The labor pool. There's a whole lot going on with that in itself. So ultimately, you have a turnover rate with guys. Your staffing, whether it's in the office, it's salesmen, repair guys, installers, whatever that may be. We had to find the right fit for our company, ultimately, right? I didn't want the employee that's here today, gone tomorrow, just looking to make top dollar and gotta go. So we've built a team, and it's been a family-like atmosphere in itself. Being able to keep our employees close-knit to us and them understanding like the vision and the goal in itself and where we're at, they're like sort of under the covenant with us, right? If the business succeeds, they succeed. If the business fails, they fail. It's like when you're trying to build a Super Bowl quality team, right? You're going to bring in 3 guys for a position and then they got to compete for that. You got to be the best. You have to have the best and work within the best.
I like that. That's smart. And I mean, I can attest to that, right? I've been here for now 2 days.
Yep.
And the atmosphere when I walk into your office is fucking great, right? Yep. And at the same time, while there's joking and there's banter and there's all these different things that people enjoy in a social setting, there's also a lot of work being done, and people are very intentional about getting their duties fulfilled, helping their other team members and things like that. And I think those things are very important. And I think it's easy to lose sight of that when you're so hyper-focused on revenue, right? And that leads to things like you said, unintended consequences, like people wanting to leave. You can build that type of strong knit fiber within your teammates to create the experience you want for your customers, but you could also lose it just as quickly if people become overrun or they don't enjoy what they're doing. So kudos to you, because it's a hard dance to choreograph, but you guys are out there on stage fucking killing it. So
we're trying our best. So we just focus on the project at hand, right? As the company grows and we expand, more volume comes in, right? And like they say, more money, more problems. But you have to be able to understand how to accommodate those problems as they're coming. An old timer told me, if there's a fire that arises, kid, you need to have a fire extinguisher attached to your backside at all times.
Yeah.
And you have to address that in today's world. And we've done fairly well at that, right? So we're a little over 3 years in at this point right now. And me as a business owner, an entrepreneur, I'm literally learning as I grow, but I happen to be a fast learner.
Yeah.
And that benefits me. I have a special set of skills that works well in this industry in itself.
Yeah, that's a fact. And again, I bear witness to this because, back when you were at a couple 100,000 in revenue, you were one of the most coachable people that I had met with. And it wasn't just like for me, you taking direction. For me, it was people that have domain specific experience. You're more than willing to be open-minded as to what feedback constructively they have to say, recommendations they make. So like Pete McKendrick at Roofer, when he was with Job Progress, you adopted Job Progress and you implemented it quickly and intentionally and built it out to where it's like a seamless system for your team to operate and deliver that experience you want for the customer, because not all things that happen with hiccups with customers are on the install. A lot of it are things that are problematic prior to that and clusterfucks that we create ourselves by not being intentional about where we're warehousing information, what the customer journey is throughout the CRM process, who's accountable for and owning for what part of that customer experience. So yeah, it's something that a lot of people can learn from for sure, because it's not, I don't think it's the majority of people that run businesses that are very open-minded, coachable, and things like that. And a lot of the time it's to their detriment.
Yeah.
And I'll say another thing. So I was here maybe about a year ago, and we shot some video content.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest with you. I love you. You struggled.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
You struggled a bit. And you still do, but I got to tell you, I mean, the improvement is just insane, right? So the fact that we can sit here on camera, we can have a conversation. We shot a bunch of videos to help, create an experience for your customers and through the lens of like, let's nurture the experience from the inception of the lead.
Yep.
Let's build trust and authority. Let's give them helpful information to make sure they choose the right contractor. And you've shot these videos and you've done a remarkable job.
Thank you.
How important is repetition, no matter what part of your business you're talking about, in order to grow and be better at what you're doing every single day?
It's everything. So you sort of touched on it earlier in this with referencing to the gym, right? It's muscle memory. Mm-hmm. And when we started filming originally a year ago, it was an uncomfortable feeling, right? And sometimes you have to get uncomfortable to become comfortable. So it was one of those things where I just had to continuously push forward to it, right? And even as we sit here right now, I still have nerves. It's a natural concept being on a camera. If all of this was missing, you and I could have an open conversation. Easy peasy, right? Put a mic in front of me, put a camera behind me or in front of me, it just changes the dynamics.
It does.
All the way back to when I was a young kid, right? I had opportunities where I was on camera and they just didn't go smooth. So naturally, if you're uncomfortable with something, you're going to shy away from that. But where we're at in this saturated market that we are involved in, right? You have to keep yourself relevant. And one of the easiest ways I found to do that as well, I have to put myself on camera and get myself out there. Repetition, like you said, time after time. If I'm sitting in my truck, I might have 32 takes before I get a video, but I'm going to keep pushing forward ultimately.
Yeah, and it's all good. And Lil Wayne in a song once said, repetition's the father of learning, right?
That's it.
So shout out to Weezy.
Right.
And if you guys don't like Weezy, I don't know what to tell you. Because his 07 mixtapes were fucking fire, dude.
Phenomenal back in
Dedication, Droughts, oh my God. We could do a whole nother segment on that, but we'll get away from it for now. Yeah, I'm proud of you because that stuff is super important. And for me personally, some of my biggest dubs in life have come from intentionally and then kind of fortuitously putting myself into very uncomfortable situations. And if you can get comfortable in uncomfortable situations, right? There's all, like you said, there's always going to be that baseline of nerves and anxiety, and that's fine. Like the first time I shot content, it was a dumpster fire. I mean, it was fucking bad, right? And people typically tell me like, "Oh, you're so great at you're great at communicating," and all these things can be true, but it just fucking hits different when you hit record, right?
Yeah.
Like
Immediately.
deer in headlights, hearts pounding, pausing because you're like, "Oh fuck," but you get less of that as you continue to get the reps in, right?
As time goes on. And then even furthermore, if you're uncomfortable in itself, and then when you watch it for the first time, you look different, you sound different. You're like, man, that's how I sound. That's how people have heard me my whole life, right? So you have to adjust to that in itself.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing. Self-reflection with self-correction in itself, right? And I preach that into the staff here, right? At some point in another, you have to take your own inventory with how you're functioning and moving within not only the company in itself, but life, right?
Yeah.
Some people might not ever, you might never have your cord pulled. Nobody might pull your cord. You have to be the one to pull your own cord to get you back on track to where you need to be. So we're big here with that, right? A little bit of self-reflection with some self-correction.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I'll reference another podcast, Mike Claudio with Winray Consulting. I had him on 4 to 6 weeks ago. And we were talking about like the dynamics of me working with my team. And he's like, yeah, but you know what? And this is kind of along the vein of accountability. You know, how many of those people are going to hold you accountable, even if they feel a certain type of way? If you're the biggest fish in the pond, how likely are they to object to something that you say? And how frequently are they curbing kind of what they say to you for fear of like, this is my boss, he's this, he's that.
Yeah.
So that self-awareness and holding yourself accountable, I think, is super important. And then like putting yourself in a situation where you're not necessarily the biggest fish in the pond and you're open-minded to other people that have been there before, done it before, etc., or have, like I said before, like a domain-specific expertise to where you can leverage and pull from their experience, cut down the learning curve. Like that's been tremendously helpful for me in life.
Yeah. And it makes sense in our company here in itself. Like I'm surrounded by guys that have been doing this for 20, 30 years, right? I'm big into age is knowledge, age and experience equals knowledge, right? So there's some things that some of these guys have seen and encountered that I personally may not have, or one of my younger guys may have never crossed paths with that, right? And that's part of like building a team. And as cliche as it is, they always say, if you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. So I've built a team in a room around me where there's guys that are more intelligent than I am. They are better roofers than I am. They are more educated in certain areas than I am. And then everybody being in the same pot and in the same pond has helped contribute to our success in itself.
You've had substantial growth. Have there been any systems and processes that you had early on that didn't scale well, that you've had to revise, that you've had to go back to the drawing board on because the needs of the customers or the need of the company has changed and demanded that you do so?
So we've played with a few different things. And to be honest, majority of them are still in place. Once we've implemented them, we may have had to like tweak how we've utilized them a little bit, but they are mainly still in place. We haven't really had to cut too many things out, just those small implementations with some of them. Okay. But outside of that, that was it. I mean, literally when we started, I was working out of a truck with a notebook, right? And I was like, bought a truck, stuck a magnet on it. And it was more or less like, hold my beer, watch this kind of thing, right? My wife today, she still discusses it. She's like, I can't believe you just showed up one day with a truck and a magnet on it. It was like, I got this.
Yeah.
And we just stayed the course and haven't looked back since. But what has been learned and the knowledge that has been gained in that 3 years has been phenomenal. I mean, you're talking about the world's fastest track business degree, financial degree, marketing degree, sales degree, the whole 9 yards. And, you know, not to like ride your coattail, but having a partnership with you from the start to where we are today has helped tremendously, right? Like you personally specialize in our industry and you know that. You understand what you do. Like I said earlier, to be the best, you have to work with the best. And I love that concept, right? Like I can't be the best roofing company in Pittsburgh if I'm using C players in C companies. It's just not going to work. You don't put your third string quarterback in just because you decided I'm going to roll the dice today and see if he outplays this guy. It doesn't work like that. You have to perform regularly, day in and day out, and do what you've been designed to do, right? Or hired to do in itself. And partnering with you through that process, because as you've grown, we've grown. And as if we've grown, you've grown, right? And that's where we've been able to implement different strategies and techniques into things. And it has just worked, right? You touched on it a little bit earlier, staying teachable, trainable, and coachable. The moment you shut that off and you can't have that you no longer are teachable, trainable, and coachable, then you're done.
Yeah.
It's like the end of the road for you, because there's always room for growth, no matter what you're doing, whether if it's your marketing, you're selling, you're doing a repair. You could probably find a better way to brush your teeth someday, right? Like, things happen. There's always a different avenue out there that might just work better.
Yeah, I like where you're going with that. I like where you went with that. And I think that's really true. And thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. I think that it's important. You know, a lot of the times we're like the third or fourth company a company works with, and it's usually because no matter how much they perceive value, price becomes, you know, the main consideration. And like, I understand it. They're investing a lot of money, but it breaks my heart when it's like, oh, we went with somebody else. And then 6 months later, it's like, dude, can you please fucking help me?
Yeah.
And I think maybe I got to do a better job articulating what we do, because we bring a lot of value, I think, outside of just like Google Ads, SEO, and SEM, right? As far as like a strategic partner and helping, because there's nuance to this, right? The choreographed dance from day one doesn't remain the same as it does 377 days in or 489 days in. So being able to be somebody that a contractor can confide in to protect their best interests and iterate the plan as their business grows in a way that's going to be most meaningful for them, not the marketing agency, has helped us. And I think that I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you.
Before we get out of here, because I know you're just super busy with this growing company, what's one piece of advice to like a young roofing contractor before we depart that you would give to them that would be meaningful and helpful to them in their journey?
Your reputation is everything. If you're putting your name...
Say it again.
Your reputation is everything. In today's era of digital technology, your reputation is everything. It's not 1980, right? There's an internet. There's review platforms. Somebody will bust your ass.
Yeah, facts.
If your name goes on it, you need to stand behind it 100%. Otherwise, what are you really doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm an ethical individual. I like to be able to go to bed at night peacefully and not have a concern of we beat Mrs. Smith down the street. We don't operate like that. This is an ethical ran business, and I suggest that to all young business owners and entrepreneurs. If you're going to do something, do it to the best of your ability. Don't be half-assed, or you'll be here today and gone tomorrow, and you'll get passed up by a company like us. It's easy.
Shit, mic drop. Thank you. I appreciate you, brother. And thank y'all for tuning in. This was a great time, and we look forward to talking again soon. And I appreciate everyone tuning in to see more content like this. Make sure you mash that subscribe button, follow, share with a friend. Do them a favor, right? If they could benefit from this, make sure they know about it. It's your responsibility to help your friends.